Lord B and Jester talking about everything from crystals, vibrations, comics, technology, cartoons, magic, meditation, herbal remedies, etc. Whatever comes to mind, just going on tangents and rambling on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to what we call the Riff, the realm of infinite frequencies. This is the Tangent Podcast, Episode 2, UFOs and such. I am Jester D Wild One, and the other half of my hosting is my brother from another father. We both can't see color, my hetero life mate, Lord B.
What's up, people?
How's it going, buddy?
Welcome back. Well, I am well.
Should we just dive right in and dissect the insane thing that is the Barney theme song?
Okay. Well, which version? The one we
love
were
you
supposed to sing, or the one we altered it to?
We're not getting into Barney, but I do want to dive right into all that is the whole Bob Lazar Netflix documentary and the Joe Rogan podcast with Bob Lazar. This shit blew my mind, and I've literally had to keep Lord B from trying to talk to me about this shit all fucking day so that we can get it live.
He's been yelling at me nonstop. I'm like,
on the
dude,
podcast.
Dude,
Come on, buddy.
Do this. Wait for the podcast. Dude, no, wait.
Right, here's some more pictures of the things I'm looking on Google Earth. You know, just, all right. But I suggest anybody that listens to this to go and check out that Netflix special. It's Bob Lazar, UFOs, and Area 51. Then there's also the Joe Rogan podcast. What is it, 1315?
No, real quick correction. It's Bob Lazar, Area 51, and Flying Saucers.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, it can get a little confusing, but I'm sure you type in Bob Lazar and you'll get it.
Oh, instantly. Bob, L-A-Z, first one. You ready to rock? It's very good.
So what was
I
your
was very entertained.
thoughts on it in general? Like, just the whole thing?
Not far-fetched. I mean, I've always kind of followed some of that stuff, and I thought it was crazy too. Like in the Joe Rogan podcast, just touching that real quick, Bob Lazar even said, he's like, I don't follow UFO stuff. I just happen to work on part of one, and it's just it's crazy of how you pretty much completely believe him.
Right.
And,
that's what gets me is the way he acts about it. Is he's not trying to seek attention. He's like, you believe it or not, I was just there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what I saw.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to be attacked.
Yes, exactly.
You know, things like that.
And he said that too. He's like, I'm telling you the truth. Take it or leave it. I don't care if you believe me, but this is how it was, and this is what happened.
Imagine it, though. I mean, like you're applying for a job, and they're being really secretive about it, and all this other stuff. And say someone like you that has had the eye on, this kind of information. Like, how would you feel if you were to be put in that situation?
I've always been kind of hesitant about some jobs that are just like insanely vague, but I mean they went about it in a way where he had multiple interviews, so it wasn't like, oh yeah, you're gonna be blah blah blah. But he even said when Joe Rogan asked him, I mean, we're kind of talking more about the Joe Rogan at the moment than the actual thing, but I don't want to completely ruin it for anyone who wants to see it. But on the Joe Rogan thing, he asked him, he's like, how did you know that it was not Cloak and Dagger, or that it was Cloak and Dagger? And he's like, well, when I went in for the interview, they said it was for advanced propulsion system, so super vague but covered on paperwork. So
he thought he could probably do the job.
It was. Yeah, because he was working on crazy stuff and, MIT and all that stuff, and he built his own jet car out of his Honda and he would drive it to work, and it went over 200 miles an hour if he needed it to. And
his neighbor's interview is awesome.
Crazy guy.
He's just like, I just wanted to go to see the guy with the jet car.
Yeah.
It's down the block. Like, you could just go see it right now.
Yeah, he's like, he lives a block away, but you can hear him coming for like a mile or two.
I think I would be in utter disbelief of what I was seeing. But then again, I'm not a physicist. I'm not working on jet cars. Like, I would never be put in that position. I'm not that smart.
Yeah, I mean, what it comes to also is the fact of, just, what was it, like 4 years ago, they finally figured out that gravity was waves and not like graviton,
Yes, gravitational.
molecular structure. It's a wave, so it can be bent and pulled around and moved just like a frequency or, vibrations and any of that. They can be manipulated in different ways, but when it came to a graviton, a photon, I mean, some of that shit says it's not supposed to bend. But when you realize it's a wave, and he was saying basically the emitter that was, in the device he was working on would be sent out the top in two directions, and it would, I mean, if you're looking straight at it, create like this heart shape. It'd come out the top in both directions and meet at the bottom, and it would bend reality around it. He said if you're standing directly under it looking straight up, you couldn't even see it because it would bend light around it because it was an anti-gravity because it repulsed gravity field around itself, and he said it would bend light. You wouldn't even be able to see it if it's directly above you, which
so
ties into so many of these.
Go ahead, keep going. I just got a question for you.
Yeah, I'll just finish this thought quick, which leads into the thing where at some point, all these UFO sightings, you just can't see it anymore. It disappeared, and it's because all it would have to do is rotate its axis in the generalized direction that you are viewing it from. It would disappear from sight. Okay,
right,
what's your question?
Doesn't it just adjust gravity and just it just falls into it? It doesn't even like push or pull to get to where it's going once it belly up.
Are you talking about how it propels itself?
Well, no, I was just trying to touch on what you were talking about a little bit. But my question to you before was, okay, you know how it make at the top, how it makes that heart shape force field or gravitational adjustment or movement of it. Do you think that tip very at the top, like the bottom of the heart crease, would that be the sweet spot? Saying if someone wanted to decapitate or
it's like if a missile came in at that point.
Yes. Would that be the sweet spot? Do you think? I don't know.
In the all technical sense, I think it would take out the spacecraft, knowing that would be a weak point. It would all depend on if you look at it like a pen, if the exact point it shoots out is right at the top or just under it, you could shoot the tip, and it would dismantle. It would disrupt the wave, and it could fall right out of the sky.
Right,
but if it shoots, real quick, if it shoots out the beam or the gravity well around itself straight out the top, it would have a pocket force field over the top of it. So you would have to hit it either extremely hard or it would come in and be deflected off immediately, like a bullet or something like that, or even like a laser. It would have to be like either directly straight on, because if you came in at any kind of an angle, it would be shoved around it.
Right.
And it would, So, I mean, in a way, you could think of it as a weak point, but odds are they thought of that.
It's like when the other guy Bob was working with pulled out that conductor, I don't know what the exact term for it is, but he's like, go ahead, try to touch it. Like, just go try to touch it. And it's like that magnetic push. It's like, no, you can't.
Yeah. When you're connecting a north end and north end or a south end of a battery, how they shove apart, it was doing that to his flesh. Like he put his hand towards it and he couldn't get any closer when it was active.
Right.
And that's crazy to even think of that. I mean, that's why it's gravity and not magnetism.
Which brings us back
to
like
he'd be able to touch it.
What we said in episode 1.
Vibration.
About Russell Brand and how, the whole, like, if you don't have a nose, how do you know what smells are around? There's gravitational waves all around us, but we don't have the receivers to see it or know it's there. But it's obviously there. I do believe that there are other entities in our universe, in our galaxy, maybe not in our direct universe, but it's unconscionable how far it can go. You cannot tell me there's nothing else out there. I mean,
Sorry. Go ahead.
They tapped on, how chimps could be in the Stone Age right now because they're starting to learn how to use and make tools. And it's like, what if there's another entity doing the same thing with us, and they're just watching us? They're just, observing how we get to a certain point. And they talked about how from like 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, there was no real huge push in technology. And then he said from 2000 to 3000, it's going to be insane. The push we're going to have with technology and maybe becoming sentient.
Well, as long as the Freedom of Information Act holds true, that is a very good possibility. But a lot of this technology, some of it makes stuff way too easy, and it's deteriorating some people because they're the distraction. They're not learning because they can Google it, and as soon as they know it, they don't need it anymore. And then they'll forget it because they didn't actually learn it. They just like, oh yeah, this is the answer, and then
it's always going to be
gone.
There if they ever need to look at it again.
Exactly. So it's one of those things. One of the things I was going to say too, real quick, is that just to clarify, the terminology that they've been using for 30 some years isn't UFO. That's what the public still uses, but it's announced, and some military and stuff like that, they call them UAPs now. And even Hillary Clinton said it on Jimmy Kimmel. She goes, they're called UAPs now, not UFOs, which is crazy.
And she just gave us that
they would just
taste
announce
of the acronyms so that we could search for it.
And it stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon now, not UFO, because a UFO is Unidentified Flying Object. But as soon as you call it a UFO, you just identified it as a Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, because some of them, as soon as they get that, disappearing act that I was mentioning earlier, you can still pick them up on an infrared spectrum because they create this common temperature around themselves. The whole thing will be ambient temperature, so it's picked out in the sky because it's a solid temperature, like 20, 50 feet across, however big some are, but it's a solid temperature, and it's then you notice it right away.
Which is a great segue to what I want to talk about, is the unidentified submerged object. They touched on how that one colonel, I'm going to get a lot of my information wrong, just let everybody know. So if you want to know the exact details, go look up this stuff yourself, okay? He was talking, it touches on the tic-tac, the water thing he was watching. They even got it on video, and the water started moving and rippling at a tic-tac shape, and that's when they were kind of talking about unidentified submerged objects. And I guess my question to you is, and this gets kind of goes a different direction a little bit, but like Atlantis, it could be a giant hub for certain spacecraft or whatever to go through the water, and that's something we have yet to discover. It could be so deep that we could never discover it.
Well,
Do you think Atlantis? Question mark.
Yes. That touches on a few things real quick. Real quick to clarify, if you wanted to look at that video or anything like that, you can look it up on YouTube. It's called Gimbal, and there's a semicolon. It says the first official UAP footage from the USG for public release. And it shows that tic-tac as a solid, ambient temperature because it's in the infrared range, and it's showing. And the whole deal with underwater, in air, and in space, it doesn't deter how they move. And we couldn't figure it out before, but because of this, Bob Lazar watching all that, it explains it because they're controlling a gravitational field around themselves. None of that matters to them because they can manipulate space around them. Like there is no atmosphere to them when the ship is active. They could do anything. I mean, obviously ground and rock is going to be a deterrent, but those things in themselves, at least I would assume. But with the Atlantis and stuff, that brings up like Vimanas, which is the name of the spacecrafts or whatever back in the day. It's an ancient flying machine described